This is a panel on the state of software. Still processing all we learned in that last hour. And where do we go from here? I'm ready to just quit everything I'm doing and start all over. I don't even know what I'm going to be starting, but I'm just going to start there. Leading the panel is longtime NGCOA contributor, host of the webcast series Golf Business Live Tech Talks. Please welcome Harvey Silverman. Harvey's being joined by Jason Pearsall, CEO of Club Caddie. Ian Versaw, VP of Sales of Club Profit. And Ed Baker, Senior Account Executive at foreUP.
What you're going to be hearing over the next hour is far more important than anything that's going to come to your phone. So if you can keep those silent, that'd be great. We asked members of NGCOA through their Accelerate chat room, so to speak, for some comments on what they wanted to see at the this TechCon, specifically about point of sale systems. And by the way, we're here formally to retire the term point of sale and upgrade that to GMS or golf management system. But so we asked for a few comments. And we certainly got a bunch of them. But that's great. That's where these questions are coming from. The questions were not generated by AI, but generated by humans, by the members of this room, several members in this room. One of the comments I thought was really interesting that said that the POS system, or now golf management system, is the heart and soul of the operation. I don't agree with that necessarily. I think that your professional staff, your maintenance staff, your golf instructors and so on are the heart and soul of the operation. However, it's easy to justify that the golf management system, the T-sheet software, is the engine that runs your operation. And some of the comments we got indicated to me that a lot of NGCOA members feel that they're getting nothing more than a 4-cylinder Yugo, when really what they want is an 8-cylinder AMG bi-turbo. So that's another reason to participate on Accelerate. Get that? Okay. So, the gentlemen here all represent 3 of the major golf management system companies, and we're going to ask them a few questions that are curated from the comments we got from the members on Accelerate. So we'll start with this. This is really kind of my question, but I think it encompasses a lot of our feelings. If there's 15, I've always felt if there's 15,000 golf courses in this country, they're run 15,000 different ways. There is no standardization like there is in hotels or maybe restaurants. So given that, and that's a bit of an exaggeration, but I'll emphasize just a bit of an exaggeration, please tell us how you serve or overcome the many peculiarities of how golf operations are operated.
Go ahead.
It's really tricky, right? Because golf courses commonly come to us, not just we seek out golf courses. And so it's hard sometimes to tell a golf course we're not a good fit. We don't have the technology, you should go over to Club Profit, or Club Profit the same for us, right? So to some extent, when golf courses are coming to us, we go through a lot of questions, we try to understand, and I know all of us do is try to understand exactly what the needs of operators are. Too often operators don't really understand what their needs are, right? They don't have goals, they don't have priorities. They say, I'm seeing my credit card processing not matching, right? Or there's a reason they're moving, but in moving, they're not looking at what the real goals are, what they want the technology to accomplish. So it's tricky for us, right? Because we become this training system, and it's hard for a software company to tell a client we're not the right fit. We do it quite a bit. Actually, you guys do too.
Yeah, I mean, it's necessary. We look at every request and say, we don't want to be in the business of customizing for every golf course. You guys don't want to pay for it. We don't want to do it. So we got to find things that are going to benefit the entire industry. So every request that comes in, we have to really look at deeply and think about, is this something that can help the rest of the golf courses out there? And that's how we try to make those decisions. They're tough decisions to make. And, you know, and the changes that the industry wants, you know, it's constantly changing. So during the pandemic, everybody wanted to do a lottery so that you could have the early morning tee time. It would be equitable amongst members of private clubs. Guess what happened as soon as the pandemic ended? Nobody wanted that feature. So it's like, do we go out and build that for a 2-year span for a couple hundred golf courses that are going to use it? Or, you know, do we use our time and efforts on something that's going to benefit you, you know, more for a greater period of time?
Yeah, and with software, you know, writing code, it's just like an author writing a book. So you can, you know, the customer brings the business case, programmers look at it, start, you know, to write and basically an answer to it. But, you know, to Harvey's point, you know, there's 5 or 10 or 100 different ways to accomplish what they're trying to do. So what happens is they take the first stab at it, they do a first iteration, sometimes a second, third, and sometimes it's a home run, and sometimes, you know, again, to your point, it could be a big waste of time. You write all this code that nobody uses, you know, just to make one customer happy.
Let me make one other point real quick to everybody. This is not going to be a feature-by-feature verbal demonstration of what these companies offer on a specific level, but much more general in the questions and issues that the members are talking about. So how important is it for a golf course to have somebody on staff, not an outsourced IT consultant, but somebody on staff who is responsible for the everyday operation of the software, including training, problem solving, and communication with your software? Is that an issue? Is that something that you love to see and don't see often? How important is it, do you think, for your software to be operating properly at a golf course level by having that one key person involved on staff that's your expert?
So you all have been through change, and change is particularly tough in the golf industry. If you're changing technology, you need a change management manager. Somebody has to be in charge of that project. Again, understanding what your goals are to make sure that they're focused on helping day-to-day staff use technology to execute those goals. I don't think it's realistic for most golf courses. I own a golf course up in Michigan. We couldn't afford to have a full-time, you know, person on technology running our facility. So I think it's more of a priority during the migration process. If you're adopting new technology, to have an owner, somebody who's in charge of, again, making sure that you're executing, or that your staff has the opportunity to execute on the goals. But while you're adopting the technology, it'd be great if every golf course had a dedicated IT person. Country clubs do, management companies do a much better job. Achieving some economies of scale, having dedicated IT tech teams. But yeah, I think it's the most important thing to change the process.
So you're saying during the project management, during the implementation, it's important. Yeah, I mean, it's always refreshing to have somebody who takes ownership of the system at the golf course, and it doesn't necessarily have to be one person. You know, you might have a really tenured wait staff in the food and beverage operation who, you know, when we're going to set up modifiers for a food and beverage system, they know the inside and out better than because they've been there for 10 years, they know what their customers and members ask for, and they're invaluable during the implementation process. I don't think it has to be a single point of contact from the golf course, but I think, you know, one of the things that I always emphasize with our customers, you know, if we walked into the golf shop and the floor was dirty and things looked disheveled and the counter was sloppy, we immediately and naturally just fix that stuff, right? We go, hey, we need to run the sweeper, we need to tighten things up. Well, the same experience exists online, right? What's the booking engine process work like? You know, is it quick and easy? Is there a bug in it that we haven't even noticed because none of our staff is actually doing that? You're always walking in the golf shop, walking in the restaurant, and seeing how things look. Are you going online and booking a tee time? Are you getting the same experience that your golfer is getting? So I think that's really important to kind of keep an eye on that digital presence as much as you do the physical presence.
If you're a small golf course, where you don't have the staff. I do think it's very important to have the owner involved. You could have a point of contact, and they're great in the beginning. Year or two, they're great, and then there's staff turnover, they get fired, something, and now nobody knows the system. Nobody knows what's going on. The only constant in a small golf course is generally the owner. So some people are not tech savvy, they don't want to deal with it, but if you can try to get in there and learn, I highly recommend that the owners do get involved.
So with that, excuse me, members, some of the comments had to do with the difficulty in changing and installing a new system, and they say that they often hear during demonstrations, hey, we're going to make this really easy for you. We're going to make it easy for you to switch, to put our software in, take out what you have. Let's be real. It's really not that easy, right? Okay, so we have that confirmed. But are there best practices that can fully brief and prepare a new client for installation, training, and implementation? And with that, I mean, what we might find out here, hopefully, is that there are some standard practices that maybe all three of these companies use, or there's some different techniques that they use to help make that happen. But what we're really looking for here are best practices in how these implementations take place.
So the focus has to be on your data, right? The data that comes from your old system goes into your new system. If that's crap data going into your new system, your new system's going to give you better results, right? So the data sanitization process is a key part of the migration, making sure you get rid of, that member or that customer that's in your database 6 times. And your GMS part should help you do that. That should be part of the implementation process as they go through and they clean up your data. But then it goes back to you, right? Because we can't verify. I don't know if John, you have 2 John Does or if it's John Doe with 2 email addresses, right? So you actually need to analyze that data and sign off on it. And too often, of course, just say, sure, looks good, go ahead and upload it. Right? You don't actually look at that data. So you're starting off in a bad position from day one if you don't really focus on the data. So I think data is the first part. The second is to realize as we kind of moved from point of sales to golf course management software, golf course management software is big, right? So sorry Harvey for going on a little bit on this one. I did a little bit of benchmarking. GitHub is where commonly software companies store their code, and you're able to see in the repository how many lines of code are in different apps, right? So I kind of looked at a comparison and saw WhatsApp, you probably use WhatsApp, 40,000 lines of code. Zoom was 60,000 lines of code. Reddit was 140,000 lines of code. Instagram, 1 million. Minecraft, I'm sure a lot of your kids will play 500,000. You combine all of those apps together, it's still less than 2 million lines of code, and I don't know what problem for that. My guess is that's pretty similar. That's probably has 2 million lines of code, right? So we're building 8, 9 different apps, and now we have to train your staff in all of these different functions. We've got to train inventory, golf services. In the pro shop, we've got to go train F&B, we've got to train your member coordinator, your event coordinator. It's easily, if you are a full-service golf operation, 40 hours of training, just training, before you've even got your hands on the software and gotten familiar with it, right? So my advice would be focus on data and understand just how big of a migration this is and how much time you spend on training. Should be paying your staff to be training. Most of us are, I'm sure you all offer learning management systems where they can train remotely and they can train, not on site. We pay our staff to do that before they even get started to do their first shift to learn new software.
Harvey, you mentioned what was maybe the same amongst our companies in terms of how we do that implementation and onboarding. I think the trend in the industry in the software business has been to implement a customer success team. And that's a separate function than a support operation. I think Jason implemented one recently. We're in the process of doing it. And it's basically, there's a lot to it, but the basic concept is, part of it is we don't want somebody who's looking to, optimize their, thank you template on an email for after you around the golf to be in front of the line for somebody who's trying to get a receipt printer to work on a Friday afternoon with a big tournament coming up, right? So separating the customer success function and support function is really kind of standard practice in the software business. And as we all get bigger and we've got, we're kind of bigger organizations now, and we've got, different ownership structures that are accustomed to using, to running these software companies. So they're bringing the best practices to us and saying, this is what the rest of the industry is doing. You guys need to get on board. So that's kind of something that I think we're all probably working towards.
So I've been in golf tech for close to 30 years now, and back in the old days, we used to have to come on site, set up the server, set up the cable everything, you're climbing through ceilings and all that fun stuff. Unfortunately, we're kind of past a lot of that now, but back then we had to lock ourselves in a room and 40 hours you're just in there cramming. And I view that as drinking from a fire hose. And there's just so much information that you have to consume. And nowadays with Zoom and cloud and all this stuff, we can bite-size that. We can do little small sessions with the right team from your group so everybody gets the right information. And then you can go away and start learning it immediately. And then you regroup again, you get back to the next session, and then we can answer whatever questions you have at that point, and then we move forward. It's a lot more efficient to really learn a new system nowadays compared to the old tech. So, yeah.
Jason, you mentioned data migration, and I think that's been an ongoing issue. What possibilities exist for migrating data from one system to another that goes beyond just the customer data of name, phone number, and email, which has been the most common? I'm talking about event contracts and financials and other elements that are contained commonly in every golf management system, but in my experience, have been difficult to migrate over for a variety of reasons. It's different tables and charts and program and so on. Are there ways now that's happening where more of that data is being able to migrate so somebody doesn't have to keep the old system in the back room just for reference?
As the GMS systems are growing and they do more, then they have more data, right? So now you can export events, and you can export inventory lists, and you can export your rates and classes, and so on, right? But the data that you're really talking about is the transactional data. The data of this customer on this date bought these items, and he's done it, 14 times in the last 2 years. And the truth is none of us are migrating that data. And the reason we're not doing it is because you guys aren't asking us to, and you should. Artificial intelligence will rely on data in order to be intelligent, to be effective. It will change the way that every golf course operates by 2030. So that's not happening. It's not. I have gotten a request for that a couple. Right?
We actually do it with one specific vendor. We were able to, because we hired somebody who used to work for that company, we're able to transfer the transactional data. And I'll tell you, it makes the implementation process so much easier. But it's one
That was from 4 reservations, right?
Correct.
Anybody out there still using 4 reservations? Oh, it's gone. Okay.
That's a big issue.
That investment's done.
Yeah.
But no, it really makes the implementation process so much easier to be able to do that conversion. But even then, like even with 4 reservations, when we would do that conversion, there was so much data cleanup. There's 15 years worth of junk in there, products you carried 10 years ago, and just duplications and all that stuff. So it's still a challenge, but yeah, I think the holy grail is the transactional data. I mean, that's why you guys all have a GMS system, is to have transactional data tied to a customer account. So that's definitely something that we need to improve as to how we can help you maintain that data as you switch from vendor to vendor.
And the best workaround is really to just have a local folder, January, February, March, April, May, all your months, and you basically just copy all that transactional, the reports, your analytics, and just pop it in those folders. When you get with a new software company, hopefully you're with them 7, 8, 10 years. And at some point, there's going to be something newer, better down the road, and you're going to have to, for a temporary time, run on these historical data out of those January, February, these folders. But it's a lot of work. It's a lot of expense for our companies to write all that, to do the conversion. And again, like with 4 reservations, it made sense because they were so down that there's thousands of people using it. That was just a wise investment, but now it's
The other little trick that we use sometimes is, and you're not getting customer transactional level data, but if you just run basically a GL report by month for January through December, you can go in, once the point of sale is all set up, you can start with the previous year, backdated transactions. So do one transaction on January 1, February 1, March 1 that says, I did $13,000 in greens fees. Right, so you're really just doing one transaction for each month to replicate your previous year. So our year-to-year comparative reports will be good on year one as opposed to having to wait. So that's a quick workaround, and you can do that in the system.
You have to ways to around this is to do a data lake. Not that expensive. All of your data will go into a cloud-based server that you own that data. Your next system will not necessarily pull that data in, right? But at least you have that data and you have it in dashboards, and you can use data from your new system and your historical data to make intelligent decisions. And so looking into a data lake is worthwhile, and the value that you'll get out of that data in the future makes that investment now a good investment. There's also third-party products. Vitolia's Golf is here. I would plug them. They build a great business intelligence dashboard that pulls data from all of our systems, and you own that data no matter which system you use. So, you making sure that you prioritize the ownership of that data, that you own that regardless of what vendor you use, is a smart move. It's not correct.
Another member comment generated a question, and this is kind of a reverse of the importance of having a single person on staff that a software company can rely on to handle a variety of things. This is kind of the opposite. How important is it to have a single service representative assigned to accounts so that a customer doesn't go through the aggravating sequence of having to talk to 4 or 5 or 6 different people to solve a problem as they get bounced around from one to another, having to re-describe what the problem is? I think a lot of people out here have that issue. How is that a priority, or should that be a priority for golf management software companies to have that single service source available to each account?
So golf courses need support 24/7, right? I mean, a golf course in the East Coast is closing at 3, or a golf course in the West Coast is closing at 3 a.m. is closing out, and a golf course in the East Coast is opening up, right? And so it isn't realistic to offer, because I can't say this account representative, you're there 24/7, you don't have that golf course needs you, right? So what we're frustrated about as golf course owners and operators is not that I have to talk to somebody else, it's that I have to talk to somebody else who's not smart, who doesn't know my golf course, who doesn't know my history, and I have to go through those same issues, right? So what we have to do as vendors, I think we're all working on this, is we have to use our CRMs and our support tools more intelligently, and they're improving, so that the moment you call, it doesn't matter if you call Susie or you call John, that Susie and John both have access to the same information, they have access to that same history, so that you have a better experience, right? And so, I don't see us at Club Caddie in a one-to-one support model. Potentially the customer success model is a little different. A customer success person who checks in and his goal is to make sure that you're successful on the software every quarter. That is a dedicated person, but from a support perspective, we at least are trying to make sure that whoever is servicing the client has access to that same historical data to provide quality of service.
Yeah, if I hear the request for a single point of contact, what I'm really hearing is, I want a better experience. That's what I'm hearing. And the operator is, speculating that a single person might give them a better experience. But, you don't dismiss that request, because what it's saying, even though a single point of contact, it creates as many challenges as it solves. How do you handle promotions and turnover, and a guy needs a day off or a vacation. I use the analogy, if you have you're at Allegiant Stadium getting a round of beers, and you like one of the attendants, and there's a line 10 people deep, and there's an empty guy here where you can get your beers. You're not waiting in line for your favorite beer attendant, right? You're going to get the beers quickly. And that's the same thing with support. I mean, you want the person that can answer your question quickly. It doesn't matter if it's the same person as it was before. It's a better endeavor for us to be working on the systems and processes to make that a seamless transition from person to person. That's where we're spending our time and effort, because we have to account for the fact that some of these support level jobs are more entry level jobs, and these guys are going to get promoted. They're going to get there's going to be turnover and all kinds of things. So we need to put systems and processes in place that make those change in staff seamless as possible, so that you get an automatic ticket, with a number on it. So the next time you call to talk about the issue, my staff already knows what issue you're asking.
And foreUP exactly the same as what you guys just described. I actually like having the 24-hour, the person you can talk to for support, and that's their go-to, that all the staff's trained, they know who to go to for tech support. We do have customer success people that are very knowledgeable, many very tenured, a lot of knowledge, but they're there to really make sure you're using the software properly, talk about new upgrades, talk about new features, new partners, new whatever's going on. They develop a relationship with you, but they're not there 24/7. They're typically call it a 9 to 5, if you will. So if you start relying on them all the time, and you have a problem Saturday morning, your staff has a problem Saturday morning, you don't want them calling and then not getting a call back. Everybody just needs to go, in my opinion, to support. But to your point, you have to have a CRM that has all the information, has the history, so you're not starting from scratch. Oh, I can see this has been reported before. Let me check with Joe, he's working on that. It's way better than it used to be, for sure.
I'll give credit for this next question to somebody specifically because she was very, Shannon Miller, are you here? Shannon's not here? That was new here from Fox Chase.
Oh, Martin, yeah.
Oh, okay, great, thank you. What security features are necessary to prevent employee theft and detect things like gift card edits, refunds, reducing green fees for people, limiting access to things, and limiting access to things like member accounts and reports? What features are really required that make it more secure for golf course operators to know that they can either prevent or track those things from happening?
Yeah, today, we provide data in the form of reports, right? So there are logs, I guess there are internal controls as a starting point. So the common behaviors like deleting tabs out after you receive cash, there are controls in place like manager override and prevent staff from doing that. There are also, and I'm sure that in all the systems, if you go to your reports, there's going to be void refunds, you deleted item type reports, because we track all those clicks, right? So you're able to see this employee deleted this tab, this employee deleted this item out of this tab, etc. You start to look for trends there. AI is a hot theme, and that's one of the areas that we're focusing on right now, is how can AI be used for anomaly detection. The average number of tabs that are deleted is maybe one out of every 6 hours of working, and this employee does it every hour, right? And you just flag those things out and say, this is something you want to look into a little bit more. But today, if you don't know how to go through your reports to detect these things, book a meeting with your customer success rep, because all of us have tools to help.
Yeah, some of it just goes to the security of the system in terms of profiles. We always want to limit where different employees can go in the system. The ability to sell a gift card is much different than the ability to edit a gift card. And that should be very limited in terms of the number of staff that have those permissions. We can set up permissions in a variety of different ways. You can either have kind of generic levels where we say this is a wait staff or this is a front desk staff, and have some structure in terms of what they're allowed to do and what they're not. And we can also password protect individual things that we know are dangerous, such as editing a gift card or editing a rain check. All of that stuff is basically like cash. One thing that makes it easier these days is there's not as much cash. Because cash management was always a challenge in this industry, and that was so that part's kind of going away with the proliferation of credit cards. But there's still some spots where like rain checks, gift cards, all of that stuff needs to be secure and treated like cash, because it basically is.
So foreUP has and I'm sure all the software vendors have this audit trail that when you check in a golfer, enter through the point of sale, it'll with our system you can mouse over and it'll actually show you a duplicate receipt of that transaction. what clerk it was, how much they rent, how much the customer was charged, how they were tendered, what payment type they used, the whole thing. So like, I mean, I've been at courses where they caught people, this kid was ringing up a senior rate, and when they were paying cash, he would just, even though they were an adult, he would charge them the $50 adult rate. He would ring it up at the $44 senior rate, and he was pocketing the $6 difference. And they basically ran a report, and they could say, well, gosh, when this guy's working, why do we have 40% more seniors than the next day? So
We just did an integration with a company called Solate that does security cameras, where you could say, if you started to suspect somebody, you basically in that system that's integrated with our point of sale, you could say, show me every transaction done by Jason at the front desk. And you could see the running receipt with the video right there, so you'd be able to tell if it's a senior or not. So there's some third-party solutions that can really help improve security and cash management.
Shannon, did that answer your question or help you?
Yeah, I think sometimes when you look at a software, until you learn it, sometimes it's too late of like what areas can you still learn, I guess. So I guess maybe part of the training might be helpful if you get the software, so okay, here's the areas that you need to protect. Because I think it took us a little bit to figure out what those areas are.
That's a good suggestion.
Were you there for the initial implementation, or did you?
Yes, yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the other challenge sometimes is,
Right.
you train one set of people, and then the next thing you know, it's a different set of people, and it's an ongoing challenge.
Okay, we'll switch gears here a little bit because the merchant processing landscape has changed for golf course operators. And in fact, NGCOA will be publishing a merchant processing white paper, possibly by the end of the month, certainly in the next few weeks. It's something I've worked on for the last couple months, and it will open up some facts and some information about the whole merchant processing business that so many people ask about. And we've done this because it's such a major expense. And quite honestly, it's always going to be a major expense and probably a bigger expense going forward. That's just the way merchant processing is. Not necessarily what these two guys are doing, but that's the merchant processing world. So based on how this landscape has changed very recently, what's the future of merchant processing for golf course operators?
You want to start there?
I'll start. So Club Profit was, in the last year acquired by a company called Full Steam, and the founding of that company is around one central theme, which is the software and the payments should live together. And that allows for things like, it used to be you would take a report out of the point of sale system, and then you would go to some third-party website that listed all your credit card transactions, and you would try to compare those to do a reconciliation. So now in Club Profit, all of that data is in one spot. It's an automatic reconciliation, right? So your merchant, we're what they call a payment facilitator. So we're kind of higher up the food chain in terms of processing, which allows us to get good rates. But also it integrates the point of sale data to the merchant processing data. So it's a much easier reconciliation process. It's a single sign-on from Club Profit to being able to look at and void credit card transactions. So I think the future is, and it's the same, with some other companies like Square. You have to use Square's credit card processing if you're going to use their technology. Toast, the same thing. So I think the future is for those things to be merged and to leverage the point of sale data and the credit card data in one system.
Yeah, at foreUP, we became a pay facilitator, the PayFac, just this past year as well. And it was really out of necessity, because what happens is, like to your point too, you run those reports, they don't reconcile, you call the software vendor says, oh, it's the credit card company. And then you call the credit card company, and they're like, no, it's the software company, and everybody's all this finger pointing. And that's just not a good way for us to service our customers. Same thing if there's an outage, if the payment processor goes down, they're calling us for support. We're like, sorry, we can't help you. You know, call your company. And foreUP, we wanted to just be able to be the one vendor, no finger pointing. Call us if you need support. We can fix it. At least now we have more control. So I think having it all under one house and having a state-of-the-art product, where talking to these guys, I mean, I think we've all gotten there, through necessity. Some of the old applications were all barcode, and it didn't support Apple Pay and Google and Tap and all the modern stuff that everybody's kind of used to, and certainly where this AI is going. So I think it's important that you have a modern solution, and it's all PCI risk. You don't want any data going through your network. You want it going completely out to the processor to take you guys out of scope, so you're not at risk. Because again, when you get into the data security side, it can be a pretty nasty area, especially if you don't have like an IT professional to really secure it and lock it down.
I think I'd say, you're going to see more mobility. You'll see payments becoming increasingly easier. That happens. What our industry needs, I think, is transparency. All of us make money on credit card processing. Every time you use a credit card, the software company that accepts that credit card is making money. The card companies are making money, right? And nobody really knows how much that is. And that's what I think the real issue is that there are a lot of our clients at Club Caddie that their software fee is a fraction of how much that we actually earn on that credit card processing. And that's the same for every software company, right? And we're tricky. This is a hard conversation to have, because the reality is it's very expensive to support 2 million lines of code. We have 40 developers, right? Developers are not cheap. 2 of them are just on payment processing, right? And so we have to make money on credit card processing. I think as an industry, we should be more transparent of how much we're actually making, so that you all know, right? And that's a real thing that we should be having conversations about. There's a move a little bit to, we should have all of these different providers you should work with. My member resells credit card processing. Why can't you work with him? And we will likely cover that at GBC. So there's a lot of reasons why that's difficult. But let's just play that out. Let's say that member was making money on credit card processing, right? So he's the not that middleman who's making that. That member's not investing in your golf course. He's not building new technology to help improve your operation. So honestly, what we should be focusing about is transparency, but also how do we keep credit card processing money in our industry and reinvest it back and benefit golf courses. So I hope that's what we see.
I think we can look forward to more merchant processing discussion at GBC in January. Another question that came up from the membership should there be a priority on the transactional tie to each customer as a means by which to for courses to better evaluate their customers' value, their loyalty, being able to do things like pulling up, hey, who are my top 100 customers of the year, or who are the customers who spent a whole bunch of money last year and didn't spend much money this year, and who I might have to go after to try to get them back because their loyalty has been disrupted somehow. Should that be a priority in how golf management systems are programmed today?
Yeah, and none of us are going to say no, right? All of us want data from our customers, and all of you as operators want data from your customers. What we could be doing better, and we're starting to do, is there's starting to become middlewares available that are data enrichment and data refinery tools. So y'all's job is to get us an email address. Our job is to get you everything else. We should be able to give you demographic data, age data, preference data, when they're most likely to pay based on previous history, what they're likely to buy, etc. Y'all don't just sell to anonymous customers. If you can take that extra step and assign them a class, they're a senior, they're a resident, that is so valuable. It will help your marketing efforts so much in the future. But at minimum, collect a name, get an email address, and let us go over what you can ask.
Yeah, so I mean, from the T sheet, it's pretty simple, right? You got Jason Pearsall is on player number 1, you hit check in, the point of sale automatically have Jason's name up there, and everything we sell to him is tracked. Where your choke points are the food and beverage operation, and if somebody just walks in and buys, a sleeve of balls. Because you've got to train your staff to gather that email address or phone, or name, or however you want to pull them up in the database. And the other choke point is getting one name instead of getting 4 names on the tee sheet, right? So we got Jason Pearsall in player 1, but what about Ed in player 2? It just says Jason's name in all 4. So there's a couple things that's the kind of things that we can do to reduce that friction and make it easier for you and your staff. You know, one of the things we do at Club Profit is give, whether it's booking online or a phone call comes in for a booking, we'll give you the last 10 players that player's played with, right? So to make it easy without all that typing, to have your golfer type it in online because he sees the last 10 players that he played with. Or with our integration with Caddie and the self-checking process, you know, one guy just pays for himself. When he forwards it to the other players, it's going to add those players' names to the database. Another best practice we see on the food and beverage side is implement a loyalty program in your food and beverage. Because you can tell staff members till you're blue in the face to get names when they buy a bag of chips. They're not going to do it. And the next person you hire is not going to do it. So what you want to do is set up a loyalty program where your golfers are actually driving that. Because they look on their receipt, they don't see their loyalty points. A staff member only has to redo a transaction a couple times before they learn, you know what, I'm sick of redoing these transactions because this member doesn't see his points, so they do it right the first time. And your golfers enforce that policy as opposed to you trying to train your staff. So loyalty point programs are invaluable for tying, you know, transactions to golfers. And then, you know, as many names as we can get on the tee sheet, and those are kind of the things that we try to help you with some of the technology, is the ability to get 4 names. But you have to put an emphasis on it with your staff as well, and kind of explain to them how important it is.
I would also encourage you to train the staff to ask for a cell phone number. So instead of asking if the caller calls for a tee time, don't just ask for a phone number. Can I get your cell phone number? We found text messaging can be a gold mine if used correctly. You know, and you can't oversaturate. If you overtext and people type stop, it's going to take them out of the database, and you're not going to be able to communicate. And we've got quite a few case studies now where customers are you know, basically selling, you know, last minute tee times, weatherman predicted rain, beautiful cloudy day, playable. They do a text blast out to the customer database, and it's instant. You know, people get that on their phone. Email's slow. You know, email's great for when you're promoting things in the future. It's, you know, Father's Day in 2 weeks or Black Friday's coming up. Email's great for when you've got time, but if it's a time sensitive, we're doing really well with text messaging. And lastly, the email tool we just revamped. We've added the ability to do a transactional based email. So based on when somebody buys a certain thing, or they've played so many rounds, or they've done so many things, it's basically like a rules-based engine that will actually trigger. You can create a whole automation that will just start firing off, you know, whatever you want to say. Like, you know, here's a thank you for playing 5 rounds. Here's something on us. Or so it's set it and forget it. You know, it's easy. It doesn't require a lot of your time.
How important, typically when I've been in front of general managers and owners and what I've done over the years, and they're trying to evaluate their results on a month-to-month or year-over-year comparison, and they're cobbling together a variety of reports to make that happen. So how important is it to have easily accessible, comparable reporting of things like rounds and revenue and average daily rate, and things where people can just pull up one report and say, here's what I did this month, here's what I did in this same month a year ago, or here's what I did this year compared to last year. Is that being made easier now than it was before, or is that still a problem in the programming that makes it more difficult for course operators to have that you know, click a button and here it is?
I think comparative reports are pretty commonplace among the GMS systems today. We have a called Caddie, I'm sure y'all do too.
Yeah, I think it's the nomenclature is a little different though. Some people might call it department, sub-department, or some of you might call it department class. So I don't know if they've standardized anything like that. So,
I think just comparing like last year's sales versus this year's sales, and across any of those departments are all together, right? But just being able to compare a period of time.
Yeah, but in terms of rounds, the big challenge is to normalize for weather. You know, August was wet all over the country this year. To compare this August to last August is, kind of pointless. Like, we all know it was wet this August, we all know it wasn't last August. So really to have, the devil's in the details with some of this stuff. One of the reasons that we acquired Pricewing Dynamic Pricing is because of their business intelligence. You can take a look at how August was compared to last August, but it's going to normalize for weather, meaning it's going to take into account golf playable hours and say, what percentage of a possible golf playable hours did you fill, as opposed to saying, 1 month was wet and 1 month wasn't. Like, what good does that do for us? So I think the comparative reports, especially when it comes to rounds, has to be weather dependent.
I don't disagree with that, but there's still elements that you can pull from a comparable report in rounds where you might have to factor in weather from a third party to make that work. But it's not just rounds, it's revenue, average daily rate, which doesn't necessarily correspond to what happened with weather. Those are the types of things that I think operators are looking for to be more easily accessible and pulled down for whether they're reporting to the owner, or they're working on the budget, or it's going to be based on what type of bonus the general manager gets. That's, I think, what the industry, and I'll give credit to my colleagues at Pearsall, Copenhagen, and Stuart Lindsay for saying, hey, we got to have, this isn't about benchmarking. This is pretty much about benchmarking against yourself, not against what the course down the street or the other courses in your area are doing. This is about benchmarking yourself. So can that data, or are we at the point where that data can be easily accessible and made relevant, whether it's weather related or not?
We are, yes.
Yeah, we all have comparative reports for sure.
It's interesting that we're in an MGM property, which MGM Resorts was recently hacked in a major way. There's still some elements that they haven't even fixed, and it's been, I think, close to a month. Recently, Square went dark for 2 days across the world, rendering lots of small businesses unable to do business other than cash. So the question is, are cloud-based transactional systems as safe and secure as we're led to believe? And how does the course continue doing business if their system suddenly goes dark, whether it's their GMS system or their payment system? What elements are available for course operators to continue doing business with a slight interruption but not a full interruption?
It really depends on the interruption, right? There's a variety. I mean, the golf course could lose its internet. Okay, that's one type of interruption. AWS could go down, which has happened. And if AWS goes down, it's going to be on the nightly news, and Netflix isn't going to work. So, does everybody expect the golf course to be ready to rock if AWS is down? Probably not. So simple things that we do, we have, if the data's in the cloud, we actually have, for profit, we have the option to have a local server if you want to, but most of our clients choose to have their data in the cloud. You could have an iPad with cellular service, so it's not reliant on the Wi-Fi in your course. And if you lose power or you lose internet, because the iPad has a battery, obviously, you can actually process transactions on the iPad, go into the AWS cloud because the iPad has a cellular signal on it. So it's a great backup. You can use it for your beverage cart, but then if you ever lose power or lose internet, you can call the beverage cart back in and start using it for your normal point of sale. That's kind of one little practice that we use.
AWS actually has an option available for multiple redundancy. So with foreUP, we have our main server, and then there's basically 2 mirrored backups that are happening in real time in multiple different locations around the country. And so if there's a situation where one of them were to go down, there's a hurricane or a fire or something crazy, if we could basically, with a flip of a switch, run off a secondary server. I was in Florida a couple years ago, and there's a course there that got hacked by ransomware, and they were down, and they were, they didn't trust that if they paid these people that they'd actually get their data back. So they ended up having to buy a brand new server. They were down for a month. It was a complete disaster. And I was telling guys that, I hate to tell you this, but if you had foreUP, I mean, hopefully, we have a team of engineers that lock it down really tight, as does AWS. So high chance you probably wouldn't have been hacked in the first place. But if you were, we could have literally had you back operational in 5 minutes. I mean, this guy spent thousands of dollars to have their vendor come down last minute and rebuild the whole server network. So it's the cloud can be your best friend if it's done right. And again, at foreUP they have this whole architecture team that it kind of comes with the system. We never really talk about it, during the sales process. It's just it's that thing over there in the back. But when you have a problem like MGM had, that becomes one of the most important things, is having access to your system. And to your point too, having a cellular-based connection, even off your cell phone, you can create a hotspot and access it. If there's no internet available at your golf course, then you definitely want an on-prem, meaning a localized server. Cloud foreUP would not be a good solution for you if there's just no good stable internet available at your property. But if you have, Wi-Fi with a cellular option, we take a lot of the headache and a lot of the burden, off the course operator.
I think there are really 3 things that can cause your system to go down. The first is DevOps. Essentially, you're talking about that magic team in the back. Those are the architects that keep the servers running. And there's a lot of things that we can do as software companies to create redundancies, to put in, fail-safes into the system. Like we set a great golf course up in 2 days. When it goes down, and there's a backup mid, right? So they can still process credit cards as an example. We send golf courses a device that has an LTE, so if the internet goes down, there's a backup internet that can run right through LTE. So those are things within our control. The things that scare me is integrations, right? Everybody's coming along with integrations. Our credit card processor integration, we don't do the credit card processing, we're relying on third party. And so when one of those goes down, that impacts our customer, and ultimately that's our fault. We chose them as a partner, right? So if they go down, you're down, that's our fault, even if it's not our code that made you go down. So really focusing on partners. The one that's the scariest to me that's completely out of our control, and there's things we can do, but is getting hacked, right? And that's where you face the greatest amount of downtime. They could potentially take the code base and hold it to ransom, and unless for tens of millions of dollars, it would potentially be down, right? So it's really important that whatever GMS partner you work with has a plan, right? There should be a disaster recovery plan, there should be a data plan of how they recover the data. You should make sure they're doing offline backups, and you should ask for all these things during your due diligence process. What's your plan if you get hacked and if you go down? Right? What are you doing to prevent that from happening? We hired a security team. Installed a web application firewall, instant response detection software, and are doing penetration testing and all these things. But ultimately, all they do is validate, holy shit, there's vulnerabilities, right? And no matter how many of them you do, there's always going to be vulnerabilities. And so you're just trying to, I love the analogy that G said yesterday. You guys are the opposite side of this, but he said, a bear is chasing you and I'm putting on shoes, you can't outrun the bear. Well, I'm just trying to run faster than you are, right? And ultimately, that's what we're trying to do, is just hope that our system is more difficult to hack than others, and maybe they spend time going on other ones, right? So that's kind of the arms race, I'm sure, for all of us, is just to make it as good as we can.
And I think the fact that we're all part of bigger organizations now, it's a real focus for the executives that run our organizations, the risk management of what it means for my parent company if we get hacked across their other business units. So there's much more investment in it than it used to be when we were much smaller organizations. So I think that's a positive that's happened.
Taylor, I got one more question. Any time? This is Jay Karen's question. He told me if I didn't ask it, I wouldn't get lunch. So, very quickly, and as concisely as you can, what can golf course owners and operators expect from GMS software in the coming years? And we're not talking about 10 years out. We can't talk about that. And as the AI gentleman said earlier, even 5 years out is too far to reach. But in the next couple of years, what can golf course owners and operators expect from GMS software?
Hopefully actual advancements. The truth is that us cloud-based systems have just been chasing the systems that have been built 30 years ago and moving them to the cloud, right? So all of the things that existed, frankly, Easy Links and the systems before Easy Links are the things that finally we've all caught up and now exist in the cloud. What's exciting is that over the next couple of years, we get to start actually innovating and do things that haven't been done in the past. And we've got quite a few things that we release every month, and I'm sure you all are there too. But it's exciting to be able to do new things, and I think that we are right at the beginning of changing the way that golf courses operate, as opposed to just giving them the ability to operate the way that they used to, and now in the cloud.
I think for Club Profit, the thing that's most exciting for the future and for what we can offer to golf course operators is, the big challenge in this industry has always been, all right, you guys ask for really advanced and great products to use. We do a financial analysis on it and say, okay, we got to spend X million dollars to build this thing. We've got 16,000 golf courses in the US, and that's where everything breaks down. Because it's hard to spend what you have to spend to build what you guys deserve with such a limited market. And that's always been the challenge. And I actually think the golf industry has enjoyed maybe even some overinvestment in technology. And there's a lot of us out there doing this stuff. But with Club Profit now being part of Fullsteam, one of our strategies is we're rolling out a new marketing services. And the meeting went exactly when we were talking about bringing it out. It went exactly like what I'm telling you here. It's, okay, it's going to cost us this. By the way, how many golf courses are there again? Okay, that's not approved. Right? That's the way the conversation went. But then we looked and said, hey, can we use this marketing services across our other 72 business units? And can we spread that cost out? There's not that many unique things that golf course marketing is different from marketing to a gym or, a limousine service or any of these other verticals that we're in. So to leverage our size and have some of these products where now we can spend 10 times the investment of what we could before, because we don't need to extract it all out of the golf industry. And that's where I think our technology is going to really jump leaps and bounds. Is, if we're writing custom things just for this teeny tiny little addressable market, we're not going to have great tech. If we can figure out a way to spread that investment across multiple business units, I think we're all going to enjoy better technology.
So thank you for being concise. Ed, you want to finish up?
So from Forrest's perspective, I think we're kind of bullish still on mobile. We want the mobile experience to be just a seamless, process. Obviously booking tee times. Members want to be able to, if you have membership, they want to be able to see and pay their bill online. We just acquired a company about 18 months ago called Blue Golf, which is a competitor to Golf Genius. So you'll be able to, do your scoring and integrates the gym, register and pay online for outings, tournaments, and events. Just all of that whole thing, even all the way down to doing payouts. It'll actually, you can set it up so it automatically sends the winners a club credit in their account. And it's all really fast and easy. But I think mobile is kind of where it's at. The UIs are getting better and faster and easier. I mean, listening to Paul talk about that AI stuff, I can just imagine, I don't think our company's even working on this now, but I can imagine in a year or two, it'll be like, hey Siri, or, hey Alexa, make me a tee time like he was saying. And that stuff will be happening. So, yeah.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. Jason, Ian, Ed, thank you for participating.